there are legal documents that provide for that. And then finally, again, I think Mr. McGrady did a very good job of talking about some of the enhanced architectural standards and design standards that are required, right down to the design of pedestrian features, street lights, street benches, landscaping, as well as mechanisms to make sure that those elements are maintained and protected in the future. Thank you for your time and attention. Mayor and Council, happy to answer any questions. There is a representative from Trapen here as well that could answer other questions on behalf of the joint application. And we appreciate your time. Thank you.
Any questions, Bob?
No, I'm good.
Tiff?
No, thank you.
Questions?
I have a question for Jason. So if we adopt this text amendment, are particular certain, any parcels of land of 30 acres, would they be adopted, would we be stuck with that ordinance? Because here, the stipulations changed, so I'm sorry, I didn't get my question right.
No, you're good. So what would happen is, so we have a list of zoning classifications, all right? This would be an additional classification that would be available for applicants to apply to. There are no, because we're simply adding a classification, none of the property in the city currently would automatically switch to this classification. If you wanted the classification to apply to mixed residential, you'd have to apply for it. So hopefully answer the question.
Kind of.
All right. I didn't want to make two comments once the council is done with any questions.
Doris, any questions?
No,
Mayor,
I'm
may I
fine.
ask one follow-up question?
Sure.
So can this text amendment be done, is there any way to do, is it true that we can do a special use permit for the applicant as opposed to adopting a text amendment?
You would, I think the more logical approach is to go with the text amendment.
Yeah.
All right, because you're now creating a category. If the zoning comes in front of you, you can always, assuming there's a basis for it, you can deny the application. But anybody who wants to take advantage of this is going to have to apply to y'all, to the planning commission, and then to y'all after public hearings to make a determination as to whether or not y'all will agree changing the classification to mixed use.
Okay, thank you.
A couple of things, Mr. Mayor, that I wanted to point out, just some relatively minor procedural things, two of them. One, there's a provision in here which says that the staff comments have to be, they're called review comments. They have to be provided to the applicant within 30 days of the submittal. I would recommend that you take that out, all right? There will still be comments, but the way I read that, it almost sounds like what I call a shot clock, which means if you don't have time to get to it in 30 days, then you lose your opportunity to comment. We want to make sure that our staff has the opportunity to comment regardless of how many days have passed. On the developer side, I understand the need for expediency. And if for some reason our staff is being unreasonably slow, then we'll need to light a fire under them internally to get them to make their comments. But I think that this one sentence should be removed. I don't think it's necessary. Additionally, there's an entire section on public notification procedures. I don't think we need that as part of the text amendment because we already have a set of procedures that we follow that would apply to this. The same set that applies to all our categories. We don't need to make a special set that applies to this category. But with the exception of those two procedural comments, I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the application? The hearing is now closed. Discuss recording of the council meetings. Melissa, do you have any recommendations?
Mr. Mayor, before Melissa grabs this, on the public participation on agenda items, this is our first night of it being on the agenda. It's on there, nobody signed up, so we don't have anybody to speak on. Just wanted to make sure that that's clear.
So, it's really a decision of council. I know we're talking about it again, but at this point, what's in the agenda item report is a recommendation, suggestion, request from me to go forward as of January 1 with Above the Cloud. They submitted a revised quote. It's in your packet as well. Yes, it's higher than we were paying, but it will be a little different than what Scott did as well. And I'm also confident in their ability to pivot, adjust, enhance as your desires and wishes change. With public participation, timing, and the recording, the clerk's office really needs to focus on, like I've said before and over, this room, and meeting the needs of the meeting versus the recording. For example, we spent an hour, they spent an hour, we spent about another half an hour because one button was not pressed on that machine. And it just happens to be a button that lights up when you push it and goes off when you let go. But that actually is what gave us audio. Thankfully, we were able to figure it out, but again, hour and a half, 3 staff members. So we would really like to get away from that. Mayor Pro Tem's comment about the meeting last time being 3 files. That is a limitation of that SD card that I don't know how to change. It has a file size limitation, so it's like 22 minutes, so 22, and I think the last one was like 12. Things like that. If things go right and perfect, we're fine. When there is a glitch, issue, whatever you want to call it, we're not necessarily fine. So I think to ensure a good product, dependable product going forward, my request is Above the Cloud. They are the only one that submitted a proposal. Like I said, I talked with him a little bit more. He didn't realize that we really only have 2 meetings a month, typically, so that the price in the packet wouldn't include any special sessions. But he does also offer services like recording for like advertising. So we had discussed a little teaser video for the tree lighting or the block party. Things like that, he could also accomplish, those things. So that's all I got.
Okay, any questions?
Thoughts, comments?
Which package do you feel more comfortable with?
I think right now we're probably fine with us supplying the equipment. I know when he came out, he did a pretty extensive review of what we have. I think he had a couple of suggestions for things that we would need to kind of add, but I don't think that those would be huge budget issues. So.
Okay, thank you. Discuss travel training procedures, policy for council.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Good evening, all. I'm going to take less than 3 minutes of your time by reading the statement. I want to begin by expressing my appreciation for the opportunity to contribute to the development of policies that ensure clarity and transparency in our city's operations. Addressing the gaps in our charter is vital for fostering ethical practices and effective governance. However, I must raise several concerns regarding the proposed ordinance on training and travel. While I believe the intent behind the policy is to create accountability, certain provisions appear overly restrictive and could lead to unintended inequities. These concerns stem not only from my own experience, but also from the broader implications for our team and future officials. The lack of clear guidelines in past situations has resulted in personal financial costs and accusations against my character. Despite consulting 2 attorneys who affirmed that I was not legally required to reimburse the city, I chose to do so to avoid misinterpretation and personal attacks. This underscores the importance of policies that safeguard against such challenges for everyone. Section 4A2, traveler's insurance. The draft requires employees to cover traveler's insurance when opting for rental properties, yet resort fees for hotel stays are fully covered. This discrepancy seems inconsistent. If the goal is fairness, accommodations of equivalent cost or purpose should not incur additional burdens. I request clarification on why this distinction exists and how it aligns with equitable practices. Section 4B, non-refundable costs. The provision that holds individuals responsible for non-refundable costs due to schedule changes is concerning, especially when changes result from unforeseen circumstances, which were outlined in the draft, like acts of God or accidents. Penalizing elected officials or employees for events outside their control seems unreasonable. I would like some clarification of the costs intended here and how these exceptions for legitimate circumstances will be handled. Equity in travel reimbursement, the limitation on reimbursement to the mileage eligible if driving creates a potential inequity compared to past practices, such as the fully covered expenses for Washington, D.C. fly-in. Consistency is essential to ensure fair treatment of all officials. This policy should align with precedents to avoid restricting our ability to fulfill duties effectively. While these provisions raise concerns, I trust that they are not intentionally targeted, but rather represent areas for refinement. Policies of this nature should balance accountability with the flexibility to support those serving the city. I hope we can collaboratively address these issues to create guidelines that are clear, equitable, and in the best interest of our city. I remain committed to transparency, fairness, and ensuring that our policies empower us to serve Hiram with integrity. I look forward to discussing these points tonight and further working together to finalize a well-rounded ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Any other comments?
The only comment I have, and I understand where you're coming from, and yes, I was the one that said that I didn't think the city should have to pay for the extended stay of Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Yes, there was a hurricane coming. You called me to inform me the training was possibly going to be canceled. And however, you elected to still stay. And one of the reasons was because there was not a cancellation policy. You didn't have that time. That was the only intent, was you could have stayed, which you did, but I didn't feel the city should have to pay for those 3 days because we were all able to cancel out. Mm-hmm. So that was my only concern.
I would like to address that. So the reason it was not an extended stay, so let's clarify that for one. The destination of St. Simon Island was because I was committed to serving on behalf of the city. However, I'm still a mother, so I took my children and paid my portion for a rental.
Monday and Tuesday.
Correct. And the city provided accommodations just as they would if I stayed at one of the hotels. That portion was applied and I paid the difference. However, due to an unforeseen circumstance, a hurricane, I'm sure nobody wanted me to put my family on the road, even if it was refundable. If it were refundable, I would have provided the cost. However, I took the higher road, and I paid, even though two attorneys stated that I was not legally responsible to pay for that. But since there's a gap in this charter in a city that was founded over 130 years ago, that gives us the opportunity to finally fill in that gap. I'm sure others in this room and prior and previous council members, elected officials, appointed officials, and employees have had unforeseen circumstances. So I took one for the team, and I'm okay with that, and I'll continue to be transparent, but it was not an extended stay. It was not, it was me compromising my time with my family, paying my share, and reimbursing the city. Not that I had to, because if we had someone to say, hey, when you rent these rental units, you need to purchase traveler's insurance. Had I been directed to do that, I would have taken that direction. However, that was not something that was brought to my attention, nor did I foresee a hurricane interrupting. So there it is, paid back, took one for the team. Now we have the opportunity to get some policy and provisions, procedures in place, which we were lacking for quite some time, years, decades. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Discuss employee retirement benefit plan. Kathy?
Good evening. Thank you all very much for the opportunity to comment to the employees of the city of Hiram regarding our retirement. This is something we started 2 years ago during the fiscal, during our budget meetings. Our multiplier in the past has always been 1.5%. It was discussed like I said, budget sessions ago, that we increased it to 2.5%, and that was approved by the council in the budget. At that point, it became what they call a Social Security replacement plan, and GMA recommended that we had to double check to make sure if there was a referendum already on file with Social Security, and if not, we would need a referendum. The referendum is basically the opportunity for employees to have a vote to say, yes, they want to continue paying into Social Security and draw their Social Security upon retirement, or complete their withdraw from Social Security benefits and say that their retirement is a substantial Social Security replacement plan. To do that, we've been in the process, we've done the referendum research, but there was no referendum on file, therefore we have to have a vote at this time with the employees. My goal was, when we started this time around, was because we cannot foresee what the outcome of the vote would be, were it to be an actual Social Security replacement plan. To me, the 2.5 multiplier was still too low of a multiplier to be a completely Social Security replacement plan. So my goal was to give the employees the option to vote, yes, we want to continue, or no, we don't. If they decided they did not want to continue with Social Security, that opens a door for additional funding for our retirement, because the Social Security that the city matches, which is a 6.2%, is already a budgeted amount that is calculated every year in the budget based off of current salary projections. The employee also has a 6.2% that is taken out of their paycheck every year. And with the higher multiplier being right now what we've looked at for 3.6, if we were to, if the vote was to do away with Social Security, that is basically a 12.4% increase to our funding of our retirement to help substantiate that increase to the 3.6 from the current 2.5. In the package that I provided to you, it has the write-up from GMA regarding our retirement plan with the increase. The 3.6 multiplier would have to have a 25-year cap. That 25-year cap is the reason, because at that point you don't want to go any higher, because then they'll actually be bringing home, say a 30-year cap would bring home over 100% of what their current salary is. So that's why there's a 25-year cap on that. The normal retirement age currently with our retirement plan is 65. So this time we have to run the numbers also to see what it would be to reduce our average, our normal retirement age from 65 to 60. This would benefit our police department, because then our early retirement age would be dropped to 50 instead of 55, as long as they've had 10 years of service at the age of 50. They could draw at a discounted amount for that 10 years and start drawing up early retirement if they chose to, or they could wait to 60 and start drawing full retirement. So that's the definitions of the different things that you see in the letter there. That's why we discuss the different things. Our vesting is still 5 years. We do not recommend for that to be changed. This increase is basically an increase that would affect only, at this point, all current employees from this point forward going. Anybody that has already left the service of the city of Hiram, their retirement is frozen at the 1.5% calculator. But their years of service would remain the same, and everything. On the benefit study summary results, you can see what our current plan is at the 1.5. This is the amount they quoted that we're currently paying for the 1.5 multiplier, because we've not gone into effect with the 2.5 multiplier. The next column you see is the 3.6 multiplier with a 25-year service cap. Their cost of improvement, they calculate it for 20 years, and that 20 years is, and once it's done, then it would go back to down. So the additional $200,000 that they're talking there is the 20-year catch-up for anybody that's currently employed going to the future, because it would go back to their day one as they started their employment. So they have to calculate that, so we would have to fund that. So what you're looking at is the $200,000. So the total with the current cost we're paying with $84,000 and the $200,000, the total would be with just a 3.6 multiplier, leaving with the 65-year retirement age, the cost would be $284,000. And if we changed it, we would add an additional to write $101,000 total, which is $16,722 in addition to cost of the improvement, to change the retirement age to 60 with the 5 years of service that we already require, which would be the 5-year vesting that we've always had. Now, I put together another cost sheet that is attached to your packet also, just to give you a breakdown of some of the costs. This one that looks like this. This shows you currently what employees are paid during the fiscal year of July 1st, 2023 to June 30th of 2024. The total cost that employees paid out of their check during that fiscal year was $150,412. The Social Security that was paid as a budgeted item on behalf of the city, because we have to match that 6.2% every payroll I pay in, and that was $150,412.53. So the total for that fiscal year that we paid into for employee and employer contributions was $300,825.06. Now, of course, that rate has gone up this fiscal year because salaries went up. So that amount's going to constantly increase no matter what, that 6.2, because it's always